The atmospheric pressure over Gotham didn't just drop, it collapsed. Sensors atop Wayne Tower registered a gravitational anomaly that shattered windows for 6 blocks. You're in the Batmobile, burning nitro, but you're too far. Nightwing is closer. You order him to stand down, but Dick Grayson launches himself at the intruder, a towering figure in gold armor. Nightwing's Eskrima sticks, forged from aerospace titanium, strike Thanos' trapezius and shatter like glass. The return blow is a blur, connecting with the force of a freight train. The biomonitor flatlines instantly. Nightwing is dead, and you are next. Chapter 1. The Kinetic Reality of a Titan. You stand in a Batcave, staring at the frozen frame of the Kill. You need to understand the physics of what just destroyed your partner. Nightwing's armor was rated to withstand point-blank shotgun blasts. To bypass that durability and liquefy the skeletal structure underneath requires approximately 50,000 newtons of force applied to a surface area of 10 square centimeters. That is the kinetic equivalent of a fully loaded sedan moving at 60 miles per hour, concentrated entirely into the size of a fist. The human body handles maybe 4,000 newtons before fracture. Thanos delivered 12 times that amount with a casual backhand. If you engage him in hand-to-hand combat, your ribs will be pulverized into dust before your brain even processes the pain. Then the ground shakes. The ceiling of the cave, 50 feet of limestone and reinforced concrete, explodes inward. Thanos drops into the cavern. He doesn't look angry. He looks bored. You activate the perimeter defense immediately. Turrets mounting 20mm Vulcan cannons spin up and fire. The rounds impact his skin and flatten instantly. Consider the material science here. For projectiles traveling at 3,000 feet per second to bounce off like rubber pellets, his epidermal layer must possess a tensile strength exceeding that of graphene, roughly 130 gigapascals. Standard ballistics are useless. You trigger the sonic array next. 150 decibels of focused sound waves scream through the cavern. This usually disrupts the vestibular system, causing immediate vertigo. But his physiology implies a denser cranial structure, dampening the resonance completely. He simply tilts his head, annoyed, and crushes the emitter. He steps toward you. The sheer mass of him creaks the stone floor. If he grabs you, your spine will snap like a dry twig. The math is simple. His muscle density is likely 3 to 4 times that of a human, meaning his grip strength exceeds industrial hydraulic crushers. You have one option left. You sprint for the Batwing platform. He lunges. The wind from his missed grab throws you off balance. But you scramble into the cockpit and ignite the afterburners. The clamps shear off under the stress. The acceleration slams you into the seat with 9 Gs of force. You blast out of the waterfall exit, leaving the cave, and you're home behind. You check the rear sensors. He isn't chasing you. He knows you can't hurt him. You run the simulation for a direct physical confrontation again. The computer runs 4 million scenarios. In every single one, you die within 12 seconds. Conventional warfare is a suicide mission. Survival tier assessment, Tier F. Current probability of survival is 0%. You're just a man in a bat suit, and he is a god. Chapter 2. Engineering in Alliance. You track the laughter to the derelict piers of Gotham Harbor. The Joker is there, sitting on a crate of stolen military-grade explosives, watching the purple sky. Usually, this is where you'd break his arm and drag him to Arkham. Today, you need his psychosis. You explain the situation. A titan from the stars who wants to erase half the universe to bring perfect balance. Joker stops laughing. Balance? He spits, his voice dropping an octave. Balance is boring, Batsy. It's static. If he snaps his fingers, half the audience leaves before the punchline. I don't want the world to end. I want it to keep getting funnier. This is where game theory becomes your only weapon. In strategic modeling, Thanos is a rational actor. He operates on a strict utilitarian logic. Malthusian calculus, where resources are finite and population control is the only option. His moves are predictable because they're efficient. Joker, however, is the irrational actor. In a system governed by logic, the agent of pure chaos is the variable that cannot be modeled. Thanos can calculate a nuclear yield, but he cannot calculate a man who would burn his own money just to watch the smoke. You aren't building a team. You are weaponizing entropy. You bring the remains of the Batmobile's chassis to a safe house deep in the Narrows. Joker unveils his latest batch of Smilex, but the delivery system's too slow for a target with superhuman reflexes. You need to modify it. You run the fluid dynamic simulations on your gauntlet. Gotham is essentially a series of wind tunnels. To cover the effective radius needed to trap a Titan, you need to atomize the toxin at a high velocity, creating a blanket effect rather than a localized cloud. You and the Clown Prince of Crime retrofit the Batmobile's afterburner assembly. You strip the safety regulators on the fuel injection ports to allow for a chemical override. You are utilizing the Venturi effect, constricting the flow of gas through the jet exhaust to increase velocity while simultaneously dropping pressure. This will create a massive, expanding aerosol cloud instantly upon ignition, covering a 3-block radius in under 6 seconds. Joker watches you weld, actually handing you the 10mm socket wrench without a trick buzzer in his palm. It's the most terrifying partnership in the history of criminology. Alerts scream in your cowl. Thanos has breached the GCPD. He isn't being subtle anymore. He is tearing through the reinforced masonry of the precinct to draw you out. You trigger the remote guidance on the Batmobile. It isn't a car anymore. It's a 7,000-pound kinetic slug. You verify the telemetry. The vehicle roars to life 3 streets away, the afterburner glowing white hot. Let's do the math on the impending impact. The Batmobile, heavily reinforced with composite armor and lead shielding, weighs roughly 3,500 kilograms. You fire the secondary boosters, accelerating it to 250 miles per hour down the straightaway. When it impacts a stationary target, it delivers approximately 22 megajoules of kinetic energy. That is roughly the energy release of 5 kilograms of TNT exploding on contact. Focused entirely on the front bumper. It won't kill him. We've established that his durability is off the charts, but physics is still physics. Conservation of momentum dictates that unless he's anchored to the bedrock itself, he will move. The car slams into him just as he steps out of the precinct. The explosion shatters every window for 3 blocks. For the first time, the Titan's knocked off his feet. He crashes through the back wall of the station, buried under tons of burning steel and collapsing concrete. The car's destroyed. Your primary transport is gone. But you bought exactly 45 seconds of confusion, enough time to get into position at Ace Chemicals. You look at the Joker. He's grinning, checking the seals on his gas mask. Now the punchline, he whispers. Survival tier assessment, Tier D. Probability of survival has risen to 15%. You've moved from impossible to highly unlikely. You've sacrificed your mobility and your armor for a chance to lead him into the kill box. Survival now depends entirely on whether a god can choke. Chapter 3. Biological Asymmetry. Ace Chemicals is the only place in Gotham toxic enough to kill a god. You're crouched in the rusted rafters, 80 feet above the main mixing vat. Below, the Joker stands on the central gantry, humming a waltz, waiting for the end of the world. He's the bait. You are the hammer. Let's break down the chemistry of the Titan strain. You spend the last hour synthesizing a binary compound using the Joker's existing venom as a base, but stripping out the lethal necrotic agents. You aren't trying to kill him. You need to overload his motor cortex. Specifically, you need to disrupt the fine motor control required to close a fist. Without that action, he cannot activate the stones on the gauntlet. We're talking about a neurotransmitter flood that mimics a grand mal seizure. This is a biological DDoS attack. The toxin floods the synaptic clefts with acetylcholine, preventing repolarization. In a human, this causes instant paralysis. Against a Titan, the goal is simply to create noise, synaptic misfiring, and a total loss of coordination. You need him drunk, not dead. The wall implodes. Thanos steps onto the catwalk, brushing debris from his shoulder. He sees the Joker. To a being obsessed with resource management and perfect order, the Joker is an abomination, an equation that refuses to balance. Thanos doesn't monologue. He strides forward, his hand reaching for the clown's neck. Joker just widens his smile and pulls the pin on a dummy grenade. That's your signal. You trigger the remote valves. The pressure seals on 12 industrial vats blow simultaneously. The sound is deafening. A hiss that drowns out the Joker's laugh. A thick, verdant fog erupts, filling the canyon of the factory floor in seconds. The partial pressure of the gas is immense, displacing the oxygen instantly. You watch through your thermal optics, waiting for the stagger, the cough, the drop to one knee. But he doesn't drop. He stands perfectly still in the swirling green mist. He stopped breathing. This is the biological asymmetry you feared. A human panic response to suffocations triggered by carbon dioxide buildup in the blood, forcing a gasp. But Thanos' physiology is efficient on a level we can barely comprehend. His blood likely contains a super-oxygenated hemoglobin variant, or perhaps a myoglobin density similar to deep-sea crustaceans, allowing for massive oxygen storage in muscle tissue. He is essentially a closed system, immune to the environment you created unless you break the seal. He can hold his breath, not for minutes, but potentially for hours. He stands there, eyes glowing through the fog, waiting for the gas to dissipate. The gas is corrosive to your suit. You've applied a temporary polytetrafluoroethylene, PTFE, coating to your armor, the only thing preventing the acid from eating your skin instantly. But it'll only hold for minutes. The gas is inert to Thanos' skin. If he doesn't inhale, the neurotoxin cannot enter his bloodstream. The trap is failing. He begins to walk toward the Joker again, ignoring the chemical burn. You check your rebreather. You can't wait him out. You have to force the biology to fail. You have to make him gasp. You stand up on the rafter. You're gonna have to drop directly into the cloud. You need to deliver a physical blow to the solar plexus with enough kinetic force to spasm his diaphragm and force an involuntary inhalation. It's a suicide run. You're entering a toxic environment to fight an invulnerable opponent in hand-to-hand combat, but the math says it's the only way to deliver the payload. You jump. Survival tier assessment, Tier B. Probability of survival raises to 40%. The environment is now your ally, but the execution requires absolute physical perfection. The margin for error has vanished. You've leveled the playing field, but you're still playing a game where one mistake means you don't just die, you vanish. Chapter 4. The Cost of Victory. You land on his back. The magnetic clamps in your boots fail immediately as the acid mist eats the seals, but you have leverage. You aren't trying to punch through his skin anymore. You're applying forced pressure to the vagus nerve cluster at the base of the neck. He thrashes, slamming you into a steel pillar with enough force to warp the I-beam. Your armor cracks. Ribs 3 and 4 snap. But you don't let go. You drive your elbow into the soft tissue under his jaw. He gasps. It's a sharp, involuntary reflex. He inhales a lungful of the verdant fog. The reaction is instantaneous. The neurotoxin hits the alveolar membrane, crossing into the bloodstream in milliseconds. We are witnessing a systemic biological cascade. His neural pathways are flooded with contradictory signals. Crucially, the hand reaching for you spasms and locks open. He tries to close his fist to activate the reality stone, but his synapses misfire. He cannot make the connection. He stumbles, his equilibrium shattered by the sudden chemical storm in his cerebellum. He swings at a hallucination, shattering a vat of hydrochloric acid. For a moment, the Titan is mortal. He drops to one knee. clutching his throat as his nervous system rebels against his own physiology. This is victory. You have incapacitated a god. Then you hear the click of a lighter. You look down. The Joker is standing at the edge of the catwalk, holding a flare. He isn't interested in saving the universe. He's interested in the punchline. That's the thing about chaos, Patsy. It's flammable. He drops the flare. The gas isn't just toxic. It is highly volatile. The ignition point is low. The air around you turns into a thermobaric weapon. The explosion consumes the factory in a blinding white flash. The shockwave throws you through a brick wall and into the Gotham River. The heat fuses the cape to your back. The vacuum effect following the blast ruptures capillaries in your eyes. Thanos stands in the center of the inferno. The blast has burned the toxin out of the air, but the damage is done. He is disoriented, his armor scorched, his mission compromised by an insanity he cannot calculate. He looks at the burning ruin, then at the space stone on his gauntlet. To a rational actor, this battlefield is no longer efficient. The resource cost of acquiring the stone here exceeds the value. He opens a portal, not in defeat, but in calculation. He steps through, and the purple sky vanishes. You drag yourself onto the mud bank. Your lungs burn. Permanent scarring from the toxin exposure and the heat. You check your biomonitor. Nightwing still dead. The Joker is gone, but the sky is gray again. Survival tier assessment, tier A-. Survival achieved. The threat is neutralized, but the probability of a full physical recovery is 15%. You survived the Titan, but you left a piece of yourself in the fire. You stand in the ashes of Ace Chemicals, holding the shattered remains of a titanium mask. The rain begins to fall, washing the soot from the black Kevlar. Science proves that while you cannot beat a Titan in a fistfight, you can make the environment too hostile for him to exist. You didn't win because you were stronger. You won because you were willing to burn the board. If you want to see us break down how Iron Man would handle a xenomorph invasion, hit that like button and subscribe. You saved the city, but looking at the mask, you have to ask, was it worth it? And what if Thanos comes back?